Hey guys, welcome to the next quick tip here. Although this one's going to be a little bit longer. I've had quite a few questions about how to build these fancy navigation systems that will have your buttons light up as people mouse over them in a nice fading fashion. That usually people mistake it for Flash, but you can actually do it with JavaScript. We're not going to talk too much about the JavaScript today. We're just going to talk about how you can take something like this and make your own menu come out of this. Now, this is a layout for a site that we're building right now. I've already drawn my guides for the whole thing and split quite a few things up into different layers here. I'm ready to make a background. I've already made cover layers that will cover everything up. So if I were to do this and zoom out, you see this is pretty good, basically where I want to be for my background. So let's save that for web with Control Shift Alt S. This one, any background can be saved. Doesn't have to be major high quality. Go down to 80 and save. We're going to put this in this folder. We'll just call this BG because it's the main background for the site. So that's done. What we want to think about here today is this top area where we have our logo and our navigation system. Now the first thing that you need to start worrying about is making a little sprite to handle this. And a sprite is simply an image that contains two states to something. So it'll have an image, or part of the image will show what it's going to look like when nobody's moused over, and the other part of the image will show what it looks like when there is a mouse hovering over top of it. So basically, take this part. Let's first flatten your image. That way you're going to get the background and the text. Hit Control C for copy. Then we're going to go Control N for new document. It's already going to know your size that you need here. See, it's 46 high by 657. Hit OK. Then hit Control V. That will paste that in there. Now we need to have room in the sprite for the next part of it. So what we're going to do is change the canvas size, which is usually grabbed from the menu, but Alt Control C works. And see, it's 46 right now, so we need room for another 46. So that's just 92 pixels, and change your arrows here so that we're going to have it push down to the bottom. I don't know if it makes sense. You might have to play with this a little bit just so you understand what the arrows mean, but you can expand from a certain location in the document. Right now we want the top middle one. So click that, hit OK. Now you see I've got this whole other area here. We're going to fill that up with something. And put gray in there for now because gray is the background color I have over here. So jump back to this document and let's go to the history. Scroll down to the bottom. Let's undo this flatten image and go back to here. So what we want to do probably for this, it's a pretty simple navigation. Let's just change the color of the text to fade from green to black as somebody's going to mouse over. So get your character window open. You can grab it off the toolbar here. Pick your color, go over to your swatches, get the black. Click OK. There you go. You got black text. Let's flatten the image again. Okay. Now we copy, jump back over here to this document. Now, an easy way to select this gray area is you can select the one that we already had and then hit Control Shift I. We'll select the exact opposite, so the inverse of that. That's what the I stands for. So now you've got a selection. You can paste right into it. Hit Control V. There you go. So now you can see when somebody's not over, somebody's not moused over, we're going to show the green. But when they do, we're going to move the image up so that it shows the black, and we're going to do it in an animation so that it fades. So what we're going to do is I'm quickly going to save this for web. This one should always be very high quality so that the text looks nice and crisp. Save it and always call this one sprite dash nav so that it's a common name, starts with sprite, so you know that it is a sprite. Save it. Done. And that's where we're going to stop for this moment. We're going to jump over and look at some code here. Hey guys, just quickly here, I'm going to show you this looks like on another website. If you were to go over to the Tseishan website, tseishan.com, this is an earlier site we built, but basically the navigation is going to be the same on almost every project. You can see when you mouse over these buttons, it'll fade in a little light behind them. It's the same technique that we're going to do. We're just fading from one part of the sprite to the other. So this code for this site is exactly the same, and to make your lives easier, you should just copy it and change it to suit your purposes. So I just wanted to show you that example quickly. Okay, so if we start looking at the code for the Tseishan website, you can see right here is our navigation area. I'm just going to highlight that so you can see. First we start with a line, just like normal, give it an ID of nav, and then we're going to have an item after it. But in this case, we don't have to specify it necessarily as an item in the Tseishan site because it takes up 100% of the width. But in the site we're about to do, that's not the case, so we'll have to change that. And then there's list items for each of the navigation buttons that we're going to have. Now, it's important to do it this way because that's semantically correct, and that means that it makes sense to machines. This is a list of options that you have, whereas a table is for more like scientific information, or a chart of prices versus quantity of items. It's two different things. What we always want to do is use a list here. So basically you can copy this, and then we're going to jump over to our original bare bones file that I've got set up here, and we're going to put that in. So let's paste that in there. Now always leave some proper spacing here so that your code is not difficult to read for a programmer. The buttons are all different, so I'm just going to delete these bottom buttons. We'll just keep our home button for now because we do have one of those. And like I said, we're going to add a class to our UL, which is item. Now, we'll make another tutorial about frameworks of websites and whatnot later, but for now, we'll just do it this way. So we had quite a few buttons there. We're going to have a special entry here, a special LI for each one. So I'm just going to copy and paste that out, and I forget how many there were, 6 or 7. But they're all going to be basically the same. We just change their IDs, their title for the hover, and this, which is going to be covered up with an image, which is our sprite. Now, if you look up here, you see that in our JavaScript we're linking in this site.js. Now, every site we build that comes from the bare bones folder has one of these JavaScript files. This file has all the code that you need to animate things. So you don't have to mess around writing your own JavaScript. You just use the technique that we've got here. And the only thing you need to worry about for that is to make sure that if something is going to be highlighted on a mouse over with a flash, you just do this. And then you have to have some entries in your CSS file. So quickly, I'm going to update this, and then we'll take a look at that CSS, and we'll show you guys how to figure out the lines in your sprite and the dimensions of each button. If we jump back over to Photoshop here, we need to draw some guides so that you guys can measure out exactly how wide each button is. So first of all, start with a guide to break both in half. So all I did was control click the little grid here. Then you can drag a guide down from your top ruler and line it up there. Now, when we make menus like this, basically there's an equal amount of space between every button, and that's what makes it visually appealing. So they're always going to be the same. Each button might be a little wider than the next, but they're all the same distance between each other. If you zoom in here, we'll find out exactly what that distance is just by drawing a marquee. And if you look up here, you can see it's 37. So approximately 19 pixels through here, or 20, is the place where you want to draw your line. So we'll do 19. Now I've got my little box here, and since it's already drawn out, the easy thing to do is just zoom out a little bit by using your zoom tool and the Alt key. You'll see it turns to a minus, and zoom out a little bit so that you can see a little better. And then if you're back on the rectangular marquee tool and you hover over the inside of your marquee, you can left click and drag. So now you don't have to measure it out every time. Just drag a new guide, slide your bar over, and just continue, and it's fast. Okay, so we're done. Zoom out to 100% again. There, we have nice little bars that are going to break everything up for us. So, in the case of our home button, if you just mouse over it there, or make your selection up to the guide, you'll see it's 68 wide, whereas the next button is going to be 110, and so on down the list. Now, we're not going to go and show you every single button, but I will show you these first two, and then you can take it from there. Okay, when it comes to the CSS for this, all the code for your navigation bar, except for its actual position on the page, will be in base.css under the main nav comment here. So this is the Seishan one, and basically I'm just going to go up to get the basic lines here that make it work, and you tell it what file to use. And our first button is in the navigation a pound home, and so after this is the other buttons, but we really only need one. So I'm just going to copy this part, and then we'll jump back to our original. If you're over in your bare bones CSS file that has almost nothing in it, let's paste that stuff in under the main navigation area here. Okay, so basically this is telling it not to show the text. List style none, there's not going to be any bullets with this. Float each element to the left. We know we need to change this. It was 46 high, not 68 like it was on the Seishan site, but our file name is the same, so we're just going to leave that. Now, for our home button, we know the background position of that image hasn't moved yet. This is the very top left corner, so 0, 0. But we knew it was 68 wide. Oops, 68. And so when someone hovers over it and it changes the state of this highlighted thing, we're going to slide our sprite down. So instead of being at 0, 0, it's now 0 and negative 46, which moves it downwards. So instead of having the green part, we're going to show the black part. And the width has to be the same, right? So there you go. That's your home button done. It will work now if you upload these files and your images, don't forget. So just copy this and paste it again, and this is going to be for the about button. Right? So instead of home here, you got to put in about. So just replace that. Now, one important change for your second button is it's no longer at 0, 0, because the second button in the sprite starts just past the home button. So we need to move it to the right, which means a negative number, by the same width that was there before. And don't forget to write px in there. So it's going to be negative 68 all the way through. There we go. But we're still moving it down the same amount when we hover, so leave that. Now we know this one is 110 pixels. And that's it. You have your second button done. You just have to repeat this process until you have all the buttons covered, and then you're good. The only other thing that you need to do is to indicate in your layout.css where exactly on the page this thing is going to sit. So I'm not going to get into that right now, but it's the same as other items. You just measure from the left how far, or from the right side, sorry, how far in it's going to go. And we know the total width of this was 657 pixels, so you're going to need a negative margin about that. If you have questions, send me an email. And that's it. I hope this helps you guys make menus, and if there's more questions about it, I'll make a part 2. So just let me know.